Admiral Minho sat in his command chair on the bridge of the Confederation flagship, watching the numbers on his screen change every few minutes. But these weren't good changes. For the past 3 months, something strange was happening across the galaxy, and it was making him very worried. The communication officers had been bringing him reports that didn't make sense at first. Human radio signals were dropping fast, not just a little bit, but by 70% across every single frequency they monitored. This was huge because humans were famous throughout the galaxy for one thing. They never stopped talking. Every other species in the Confederation knew this about humans. They broadcasted everything. Their music could be heard from 3 star systems away. They had talk shows that went on for hours about the smallest things. They argued about sports, politics, and even what food tasted better. Human traders would chat with anyone they met in space, sharing stories and jokes. Their children sent messages to pen pals on different planets. Even their military units were known for their constant radio chatter during missions. But now, the galaxy felt empty without their voices. Lieutenant Jisoo, his young aide from the Altarian species, had been working day and night to figure out what was happening. She had big purple eyes that could process data faster than most computers, and right now those eyes looked scared. "Sir," she said, her voice shaking a little, "I've been looking at our historical records. Every single major war in the past 1,000 years had one thing in common." Minho turned to look at her. "What's that, Lieutenant?" Right before each war started, human communications dropped to almost nothing, just like now. The Admiral felt his stomach drop. He had been in the military for 40 years and had fought alongside humans many times. They were good allies, brave fighters, and loyal friends. But there was something about them that always made other species a little nervous. Humans were unpredictable. When most species faced danger, they either ran away or called for help immediately. Humans did something different. They got quiet. They started planning. And when humans made plans, things usually got very intense very quickly. Jisoo pulled up more data on the main screen. Charts and graphs showed communication patterns going back centuries. Every time there was a big threat to the galaxy, space, pirates, alien invasions, or civil wars, the same pattern appeared. Human chatter would slowly decrease over several weeks, then drop to almost zero right before major fighting began. "Look at this one, sir." Jisoo pointed to a red line on the graph. "The Korgan War started right here. Human communications had been dropping for 2 months before the first battle. And this one," she pointed to another spot, "the Silicon Valley Rebellion. Same pattern. The Void Hunters invasion, the trade route wars, the android uprising, every single one, sir. The humans knew something was coming before anyone else did." Minho stood up and walked to the big window that showed the stars outside. Space looked peaceful right now, but he knew that could change very quickly. In his experience, when humans went quiet, it meant they were getting ready for something big. The thing that worried him most was that humans didn't get scared the way other species did. When Altarians like Jisoo faced danger, their eyes would change color and they would call for help. When the rock-like granite people faced threats, they would dig underground and hide. When the bird-like skyfolk sensed trouble, they would fly away to safety. But humans were different. When they sensed danger, they didn't run or hide or call for help right away. Instead, they started preparing. They would gather resources, make weapons, train their people, and create battle plans. They would work day and night, getting ready for whatever was coming. The scariest part was that humans were usually right. Their instincts about danger were better than any early warning system the Confederation had ever built. They seemed to know when trouble was coming before anyone else figured it out. "Lieutenant," Minho said, still looking out at the stars, "how long has it been since we've heard from the human colonies?" 17 days, sir. The last transmission was a routine trade report from New Busan Station. And their military? Nothing. For 3 weeks, even their patrol ships have stopped sending regular check-ins. This was really bad. Human military units were required to send reports every day. They were very good at following rules, especially communication rules. If they had stopped sending reports, it meant they were preparing for something serious. Minho turned back to his aide. "Send a message to all Confederation bases. Tell them to start preparing for possible military action. And get me a direct line to Admiral Tajin on Earth. Sir, we've been trying to reach Earth for days. They're not responding to any calls. The Admiral's worst fears were confirmed. The humans weren't just quiet. They had gone completely silent. Intelligence. Officer Hyeri had always been good at blending in. As a member of the shape-shifting mimic species, she could look like almost anyone. Today she looked like a regular human woman, with black hair and brown eyes, walking through the busy streets of New Sol Colony like she belonged there. But something felt very wrong. The colony should have been noisy and chaotic. Like human, settlements always were. Instead, everything felt controlled and quiet. People walked with purpose, talking in low voices or not talking at all. The usual sounds of human life, laughing children, street musicians, loud conversations, were almost completely gone. Hyeri had been sent by Admiral Minho to figure out why humans had gone so quiet. The Confederation needed answers, and she was their best spy. She had infiltrated dozens of worlds before, but this mission felt different, more dangerous. She started by visiting the local communication center, pretending to be a human colonist, who wanted to send a message to her family on Earth. The clerk, a young human man named Jaewon, was polite but careful with his words. "I'm sorry, but all external communications are temporarily restricted," he said, not meeting her eyes. "Colony security protocols." "When will they be back online?" Hyeri asked, trying to sound frustrated like a normal colonist would be. "Soon," Jaewon replied, but his tone suggested it wouldn't be soon at all. This was her first clue. Humans love staying connected with family and friends across the galaxy. Cutting off external communications was like asking them to stop breathing. Something very serious was happening. Over the next few days, Hyeri explored the colony more, carefully. She noticed things that made her more worried with each passing hour. Human children weren't playing outside as much as usual. Instead, they were in organized groups, learning things that looked more like military training than games. Adults were working longer hours, and many shops that sold luxury items had closed down. Only stores selling basic supplies, tools, and equipment remained open. The spaceport was the most telling sign. Usually, human colonies had ships coming and going all day long, traders, tourists, families visiting each other. But now, only cargo. Ships were landing, and they were all carrying the same kinds of things: metal, electronics, food supplies, and medical equipment. Lots of medical equipment. Hyeri managed to sneak into the colony's administrative building one night. Her shape-shifting abilities let her look like a janitor, so no one paid attention to her as she cleaned floors and emptied trash cans. But she was really looking for information. In the colony administrator's office, she found something that made her blood run cold. On the desk was a stack of papers with lists of names. These weren't just any names. They were lists of every human citizen living on non-human worlds throughout the galaxy. Next to each name was a status: recalled, en route, or pending. The humans were calling their people home. All of them. But the real discovery came when she accessed the colony's computer system. Her species had natural abilities that let her interface with most alien technologies and human systems were surprisingly easy to crack. What she found in their files changed everything. The humans hadn't stopped communicating at all. They were talking constantly, but only to each other. Every single message was encrypted using codes that Hyeri had never seen before. The messages were being sent through private networks that didn't connect to the galactic communication system that other species used. It was like the humans had built their own private internet that only they could access. She managed to decode a few messages, and what she read made her realize how serious the situation was. Humans were moving resources on a massive scale. Entire factory worlds were switching to producing military equipment. Mining operations were working around the clock. Food production was being increased and stockpiled. Most frightening of all, human military fleets were moving. Not just a few ships, but hundreds of them, heading to coordinates that weren't on any public star charts. They were taking positions throughout the galaxy, but no one except humans knew where they were going. In the colony's historical archives, Hyeri found an old military document that explained everything. It was a strategy manual from Earth's ancient Military academies and one line stood out like a warning. Operational silence precedes decisive action. When preparing for significant military operations, all external communications must cease to prevent enemy intelligence gathering. The humans weren't being mysterious for fun. They were following military doctrine that was probably thousands of years old. They had identified a threat, and now they were preparing to deal with it without telling anyone what that threat was. Hieri discovered that human families were being moved away from border colonies and brought to more secure worlds. Human businesses on alien planets were quietly shutting down or transferring ownership to local species. Human students studying at alien universities were being called home for family emergencies. The pattern was clear. Humanity was pulling back, gathering its resources and preparing for war. But war against what? And why weren't they telling their allies in the Confederation what was happening? As Hieri prepared to leave New Sol Colony with her report, she overheard a conversation between two human military officers that made everything even more terrifying. "How long do we have?" one asked. "Maybe 6 months," the other replied. "Maybe less? The deep space monitors are picking up stronger signals every day, and the other species still don't know? We tried warning them. They thought we were being paranoid again. Now we prepare alone." The breakthrough came at 3 in the morning when Lieutenant Jisoo was working late in the communication center. She had been trying for weeks to crack the human encryption codes, running different programs and algorithms through the computer systems. Most of the time she got nothing but digital noise. But tonight was different. A single message fragment broke through the encryption, just for a few seconds before the security systems locked it down again. But those few seconds were enough to change everything. The message contained coordinates from the edge of the galaxy, along with sensor readings that made no sense at first. Energy signatures unlike anything in the Confederation database. Movement patterns that suggested something massive was traveling through the empty space between galaxies. Something that shouldn't exist. Jisoo immediately called Admiral Minho, even though it was the middle of the night cycle on the ship. When he arrived at the communication center, still wearing his sleeping clothes, she showed him what she had found. "Sir, I think I know why the humans went quiet," she said, her purple eyes wide with fear. "Look at these readings." The data on the screen showed energy patterns that were clearly artificial, but not from any known species. Whatever was out there was huge, possibly larger than entire planets, and it was moving toward their galaxy at incredible speed. "How long have the humans known about this?" Minho asked. "Based on the timestamps in their messages, sir." "At least 6 months, maybe longer." Admiral Minho felt sick. 6 months ago there had been a routine Confederation Council meeting. He remembered now that the human representative, Ambassador Ji-young, had requested time to present some urgent findings from their deep space monitoring stations. But the Council had been busy with trade disputes and territorial negotiations. They had told her to submit a written report instead, a written report that apparently no one had taken seriously. "Pull up the archives from 6 months ago," Minho ordered. "Find Ambassador Ji-young's report." It took Jisoo 20 minutes to locate the document. When she found it, both of them stared at the screen in horror. The report was 12 pages long and filled with detailed sensor data, mathematical projections, and tactical assessments. The title alone should have gotten everyone's attention. Urgent Threat Assessment. Unknown hostile entity approaching from intergalactic space. The report described exactly what they were seeing now. An ancient artificial intelligence, possibly millions of years old, that had been detected moving between galaxies. The human deep space stations had been tracking it for months, analyzing its path and speed. According to their calculations, it would reach the outer rim of their galaxy within a year. But the most chilling part of the report was the historical analysis that human scientists had included. They had found evidence that this same entity had visited their galaxy before, thousands of years ago. Ancient ruins on dead worlds, all showing the same pattern of destruction. Entire civilizations wiped out by some kind of mechanical force that consumed everything in its path. "Sir," Jisoo said quietly, "look at the response log for this report." The responses from other Confederation species were brutal to read. The Altarian Council had dismissed it as human paranoia and warmongering tendencies. The granite people had called it unsubstantiated fear-mongering. The Skyfolk representative had written that humans always expect the worst and see enemies where none exist. No one had believed them. No one had even asked for more information. 3 days ago, a message had been sent from human space to every major Confederation base. It wasn't encrypted this time. The humans wanted everyone to see it. Captain Junho of Human Defense Command had sent what appeared to be their final attempt at cooperation. The message was short and direct. We tried to tell you. Council ignored our warnings. Entity will reach outer rim systems in estimated 4 months. Human forces moving to defensive positions. We will engage the threat with or without Confederation support. When the enemy comes, civilian populations should stay behind our defensive lines. We will protect you whether you want us to or not. As Admiral Minho read those words, he understood what had been happening. The humans hadn't gone quiet because they were planning an attack on other species. They had gone quiet because they were preparing to defend the entire galaxy against an enemy that no one else believed existed. All the strange behavior that Intelligence Officer Hieri had reported suddenly made sense. Humans were recalling their citizens from vulnerable worlds because those worlds might be destroyed. They were stockpiling resources because they expected a long war. They were moving military fleets to secret positions because they were setting up a defensive network around the galaxy. And they were doing it all alone because no one had listened to their warnings. "Jisoo," Admiral Minho said, his voice heavy with guilt and fear, "get me a direct communication link to Captain Junho. Maximum priority." "Sir, the humans aren't accepting calls from Confederation ships. Then send them this message in clear text so everyone can see it." "We believe you." "We're sorry, what can we do to help?" But even as he gave the order, Minho wondered if it was already too late. The humans had been preparing for this fight for months, while everyone else ignored the threat. Whatever was coming from the darkness between galaxies would arrive soon, and the galaxy's best defenders had been forced to face it alone. The worst part was knowing that the humans would still protect everyone, even after being dismissed and ignored. That's just who they were. The alarm systems across the galaxy started screaming at exactly 14:27 Standard Time. Every deep space monitoring station, every military base, every civilian settlement with long-range sensors suddenly detected the same terrifying readings. Something massive had just entered their galaxy from the empty void beyond the stars. Admiral Minho was in his ready room when Lieutenant Jisoo burst through the door without even knocking, something she had never done before in all her years of service. "Sir, it's here," she said, her purple eyes flashing with panic. "The thing the humans warned us about. It just breached the outer rim near the Kepler sector." Minho rushed to the bridge, where his crew was staring at their screens in shock. The readings were beyond anything they had ever seen. The object was easily the size of a small moon, but it was clearly artificial. Geometric patterns covered its surface, and it was moving through space in ways that defied everything they knew about physics. Worse yet, it wasn't alone. Smaller constructs, each about the size of a battleship, were spreading out from the main body like insects from a hive. They moved with perfect coordination, scanning everything in their path with beams of sickly green light. "Communications. Officer," Minho ordered, "try to make contact with the entity, standard first contact protocols." "Sir, I've been trying for the past 10 minutes. It's not responding to any signals." "But sir, it's doing something to the planets it passes." The main screen showed long-range telescope images of the Kepler system. 3 planets orbited the local star, and all 3 had supported life just hours ago. Now they were grey and lifeless. The entity had somehow drained them completely, leaving nothing but empty rock behind. "My God," Minho whispered. "It's exactly like the humans said. It eats everything." That's when the miracle happened. Or maybe it was the most terrifying thing anyone had ever seen, depending on how you looked at it. Ships began appearing out of nowhere. Not just a few ships, but hundreds of them. They emerged from asteroid belts where no ships should have been, able to hide. They rose from the atmospheres of gas giant planets, where the pressure should have crushed any known technology. They uncloaked from behind moons and came out of nebulae that should have been too dangerous for any vessel to enter. Human ships. All of them. Admiral Minho had served alongside human fleets for decades, and he thought he knew what their military looked like. He had seen their standard battleships, their carriers, their support vessels. But the ships appearing now were completely different. They were larger, more advanced, and armed with weapons that he didn't recognize. "How many ships are we looking?" "Cat?" he asked his tactical officer. "Sir, the count keeps going up. We're at over 800 confirmed vessels and more are still appearing. These aren't just ships from human colonies either. Some of these designs, I've never seen anything like them." The human fleet was arranging itself in perfect formation between the alien entity and the populated systems of the galaxy. At the center of the formation was a massive ship that dwarfed everything around it. Its hull was painted with Korean characters that translated to Incheon's pride. Suddenly, all Confederation communication channels received the same transmission. It was from Admiral Somin, commander of the human flagship. "This is Admiral Somin of the Human Defense Fleet, to all Confederation forces. We are engaging the hostile entity now. All civilian and military vessels are ordered to maintain safe distance behind our defensive line. We will handle this threat." "Handle? It," Minho muttered. "That thing just destroyed 3 planets. How can they possibly handle it?" His question was answered moments later when the human fleet opened fire. The weapons they used were unlike anything in galactic military databases. Beams of pure white energy that could cut through space itself. Projectiles that seemed to bend reality around them as they flew. Missiles that opened tiny holes in space-time before exploding with the force of small stars. The alien construct, which had seemed unstoppable just moments before, actually slowed down under the barrage. Its smaller ships began changing course to engage the human fleet instead of continuing toward populated worlds. "Sir," Lieutenant Jisoo said, her voice full of awe, "the humans have been holding back. All these years, in all our joint military exercises, they never showed us what they were really capable of." It was true. Every species in the Confederation had always assumed that military strength was roughly equal among the major powers. Humans seemed powerful enough to defend themselves, but not so powerful that they could threaten everyone else. It was a careful balance that kept peace in the galaxy. But now they were seeing the truth. Humans had been deliberately limiting themselves, hiding their real capabilities to avoid making other species feel threatened. They had maintained just enough visible strength to be respected as equals, while secretly building weapons and ships that were decades or even centuries ahead of anything else in the galaxy. The battle raged for hours. The alien entity was clearly ancient and powerful, but it had never faced an enemy like humanity before. Every time it adapted to one type of human weapon, the humans switched to something completely different. They fought with creativity and unpredictability that confused the mechanical intelligence. More importantly, they fought with a desperation born from knowing that failure meant the death of everything they cared about. Not just their own people, but every living being in the galaxy. The battle against the ancient mechanical intelligence lasted 6 of the longest days in galactic history. For every hour that passed, Admiral Minho and the rest of the Confederation forces watched from a safe distance as human ships threw themselves against an enemy that had destroyed countless civilizations across the universe. On the first day, the humans lost over 100 ships. On the second day, they lost 200 more. By the 4th day, Admiral Somin's massive flagship, the Incheon's Pride, was badly damaged but still fighting. The human admiral refused all offers of assistance from Confederation forces. "Stay back," was all he would say over the communication channels. "This is our responsibility." Lieutenant Jisoo had been monitoring the battle constantly, barely sleeping or eating. Her purple eyes had turned almost black from exhaustion and stress. "Sir," she told Admiral Minho, "the humans are losing too many ships. At this rate, they won't have a fleet left." But the humans kept fighting. They used weapons that no one knew they possessed, tactics that seemed impossible, and a level of coordination that suggested they had been preparing for this exact battle for years, maybe decades. The mechanical entity was learning from each encounter, adapting its defenses and changing its attack patterns. But humans were learning too, and they were learning faster. Every time the alien intelligence thought it had figured out human strategy, the humans would do something completely unexpected. On the fifth day, something changed. The smaller alien constructs began retreating toward their main body instead of attacking human ships. The massive entity itself slowed down and started emitting different energy signatures. "What's happening?" Minho asked his science officer. I think it's trying to leave, sir. The energy readings suggest it's preparing to jump back into intergalactic space." But the humans weren't going to let it escape. Admiral Soman's damaged flagship led what remained of the human fleet. In one final desperate attack, they surrounded the mechanical intelligence completely, using every weapon they had left. The explosion when the entity finally died was visible from 12 star systems away. The flash of light was so bright that it temporarily blinded sensor equipment across half the galaxy. When the sensors came back online, the alien threat was gone, completely destroyed. But so was half of the human fleet. Of the 1,000 ships that had appeared to defend the galaxy, only about 500 remained. Many of those were badly damaged. Thousands of human crew members had died fighting an enemy that most of the galaxy hadn't even believed existed just a week earlier. In the days that followed, the full scope of humanity's sacrifice became clear. The ships they had lost weren't just military vessels. They were mobile cities, home to entire families of humans who had volunteered to live in deep space as the galaxy's hidden guardians. Children had grown up on those ships, learning to be humanity's secret protectors. The weapons and technology they had used up in the battle represented centuries of research and development, resources that human colonies had been quietly gathering for generations, all in preparation for a threat that might never come. Except it did come, and humanity was ready. Admiral Minho attended the memorial service for the fallen human defenders. It was held in space, near the coordinates where the final battle had taken place. Representatives from every species in the Confederation were there, many of them crying for people they had never met but who had died protecting them. After the service, everything changed. The Galactic Council held an emergency session that lasted for 3 days. The result was a complete restructuring of how the Confederation handled threats and intelligence gathering. At the center of the new system was something called the Human Monitoring Protocol. Officer Do-hyun, who had been promoted to Confederation Intelligence Chief after his excellent work analyzing human behavior patterns, explained the new system to the Council. "We've learned that humans have abilities we never understood," he said, standing before representatives of dozens of different species. "They can sense threats before our best computers detect them. They can prepare for dangers that we can't even imagine. But most importantly, they're willing to carry burdens that would crush other species." The new protocol was simple but revolutionary. A team of specialists would monitor human communication patterns across the galaxy, not to spy on them, but to watch for the warning signs that they had spotted a new threat. When human chatter decreases by more than 30%, Do-hyun explained, automatic alerts will be sent to every Confederation military base. When it decreases by 50%, we go to high alert. When humans go completely silent, we prepare for war. But the protocol went deeper than just watching communication patterns. The Confederation finally understood that humans had been protecting the galaxy for centuries without asking for recognition or reward. They had built secret fleets, developed advanced weapons, and maintained hidden monitoring stations throughout galactic space. All of this had been done while other species lived normal, peaceful lives, never knowing that humanity was standing guard in the darkness. "Their silence isn't secrecy," Do-hyun told the Council in his final report. "It's preparation. When humans stop talking to us, it doesn't mean they're planning to hurt us. It means they're getting ready to protect us from something we haven't seen yet." The galaxy now had an early warning system, unlike anything that had ever existed before. It wasn't based on technology or artificial intelligence. It was based on humanity's instincts, their willingness to sacrifice, and their absolute dedication to protecting life in all its forms. When humans went quiet, the galaxy would listen. Because silence from humanity didn't mean danger was gone, it meant their guardians were working.